We're not talking about you, Sheldon, you're okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I know that we are running a little late this afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and in the council chamber today, we have all members of council. We also have our CAO, Deepak Joshi, and we have our communications manager, Brett Paskrup, with us. And this meeting is being recorded, so if you miss something, if you're watching now, you can always catch it later. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll request the resolution for the agenda, please. Thank you, Rob.
Resolved, the agenda for the meeting adopted as circulated with the noted additions. Reception of delegations, 4.1 Scatlock Miller Murray, Gulf Lake, Stakeholder Engagement Report at 2:15. 4.11 Deb Webning Incorporated, 4.12 Gull Lake Ratepayers Association, 4.13 Gull Lake Basin Management Board, 4.2 Red River Planning District, Darren for 2:30 p.m.
Okay, can I
As well as 13.2 subdivision 21-2907 resident question, 13.7 subdivision 21-2929 opposition McKay, opposition R Greenwood, opposition Sherwood, opposition H Greenwood, opposition Johnson, opposition Koschuk and Trump, and opposition O'Barron.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowicz, Councillor Morvis seconds. Any discussion, any other corrections or additions to the agenda for this afternoon? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And I believe the next item on the agenda is our adoption of the minutes from our regular meeting of November the 16th and our committee of the whole on November the 30th. So we would have the resolution, please.
Resolve the minutes of November 16th, 2021, regular meeting of council, and November 30th, 2021, committee of the whole be adopted as presented.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, Councillor Strang seconds. Discussion, corrections, omissions? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, it's not quite 2:15, or I guess it is 2:15. Is Scotland Miller zooming in, or are they coming in?
I think they were coming in person. Wes was going to come in person, and I think we were going to zoom in for, did Heather set up a Zoom for Paul?
She sent it to us, I believe.
So let's check.
Does this take you back, Sheldon?
Sorry?
Does this take you back?
It does. It's kind of exciting.
You're sitting in his chair.
Yeah, you're
Is this your chair?
keeping my chair warm there.
I had to adjust it, it was too high.
Was it?
Let's get down.
What was the last year? What was your last year again? I'm trying to remember that last year. What was it 20?
92 or 3, 93 I think it is.
93. Okay.
1993.
Wes isn't here yet?
No, neither was one.
92.
Okay, well, Bob will be coming
The
online.
election was 92.
Maybe it was, probably then.
Yeah.
It may be that they're coming online now.
Okay.
There's another chair on this side if you want to move it over there, David. And are you expecting anybody else, Darren? Because we're pretty much at limit as to how many
Yeah,
we can have in the chamber.
nobody else indicated to me or was invited, so as far as I know, this will be it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We have Scotland Miller Murray and Wes Petcock from Scotland Miller Murray, as well as Bob Summers from Scotland Miller Murray will be doing the presentation, Madam Mayor. What I'll do is I'll start the recording on this so that we can keep a record of the presentation itself.
Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome Bob and welcome Wes.
Just so everybody knows, this is being recorded so that it will be online for everybody to view after our meeting. And I did say that when I started the meeting, so just so that you're aware that there is the recording and will be available later. So thank you for that. Go ahead, Deepak.
Just as a further addition to that, Madam Mayor, we are also streaming live for anybody to watch live during the meeting, but the recording is occurring for the Zoom meeting because the consultant is presenting through Zoom. So on that, what I'll do is, we're starting off with the presentation from Scotland Miller Murray. So Wes, would you like to start sharing your presentation on the screen and then we can walk through it?
Sure. Deepak, are you able to show the presentation, or would you like us to?
If you could show it, then it's all being recorded, it'll all be on the screen then. If you're having trouble, I can certainly share it. Perfect. Thank you.
Very good. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of council, RM staff, and those viewing this presentation this afternoon. We have been working with RM staff in engaging local stakeholders on whether the RM should resume gravel extraction operations at its Galway site. We're pleased to be here to discuss the outcome of this work through our final report. Our presentation to you this afternoon focuses on four main parts. First, the project context. Secondly, the engagement process. Thirdly, the feedback we've received. And fourthly, our recommendations in response to this feedback. And at the conclusion of our presentation, Bob and I are available to discuss, answer any questions that council may have in regards to our final report. The next two slides highlight the area setting and introduce the overall intent of the project. As we know, a number of features and conditions influence and inform the subject site. We have Broken Head Ojibwe First Nation to the southwest. We have the Broken Head Wetland Ecological Reserve to the west. A wetland recharge area containing two aquifers. A shallow one that surrounds Gull Lake and supports the wetland, as well as Gull Lake water levels. And a deeper one below Gull Lake that provides domestic water to local residents. And we also have the Gull Lake Basin, which supports the wetland recharge area and extends around Gull Lake. We have Gull Lake, which is a perched lake with water levels supported by the shallow aquifer and has been home to seasonal and permanent residents dating back to the 1930s. Now we have the Great Trail of Canada, the route plan of which extends from the south through the subject sites and to the north along the west side of Gull Lake. As a clarification, we acknowledge that the name of this trail was changed to the Red River North Trail in June of 2021, but the trail itself remains part of the Trans-Canada Trail Network. And finally, we have Quarry Operations, which date back to the 1950s, and there are currently 4 active quarries in the Gull Lake area. This slide focuses on highlights of the subject site, which contains just over 1.1 million metric tons of gravel deposits based on recent test pitting done on site. And should the RM resume operations, we understand that the municipality would expect to extract up to 35,000 metric tons per year for use only to support the RM's public infrastructure projects. As such, there is a potential opportunity here to realize $175,000 in savings per year to RM ratepayers over the 20 to 30 year life cycle of the operation. The RM has viewed public engagement, stakeholder engagement as critical to identify concerns about the project before decisions on advancing it can be further considered. So as part of this process and in collaboration with RM staff, we came up with a list of 5 stakeholder groups local to the area that we also felt had a direct interest in the project. And those 5 are shown on the slide, namely Wendon, the Native Orchid Conservation, the Gull Lake Basin Management Board, the Gull Lake Ratepayers Association, and Broken Head Ojibwe Nation. We sent a letter to each of these groups in April of 2021 to gauge their interest in meeting with us to chat about the project. We had 1 broader group meeting in May and 1 meeting directly with Broken Head Ojibwe Nation in August. And one of our April letters was posted to social media, which prompted over 200 emails to be sent to RM Council and staff expressing concerns about the project. This slide shows or highlights some of the feedback that we received. The slide highlights the potential opportunities and the potential risks associated with undertaking this project. On the one hand, the project could enable the RM to use its own land, its own resources to support its own ongoing public infrastructure initiatives rather than relying on private aggregate operators to fill this void. And as I indicated earlier, the project could save RM ratepayers tax dollars on public infrastructure spending. We also heard through our engagement process that the RM acknowledges that sufficient care and due diligence would be necessary to determine whether the potential adverse effects of the project on the built and natural environments could be appropriately mitigated. And as shown on the left-hand side of this slide, this would include continuing to collaborate with stakeholders about the project, undertaking site assessments, preparing operational plans in support of the project, and implementing mitigation measures and best practices based on all of this assessment work, such as installing noise, visibility berms, employing municipal weekday operational hours, crushing the stone once every 3 years and only during the fall and winter months, ensuring the excavations would remain above the water table, and conducting progressive site rehabilitation to enable adaptive site reuse for future community benefit. On the other hand, and despite the project principles and commitments that I just highlighted, we heard significant local opposition to the project. And this is due in large part to 2 things. The first is the potential adverse environmental and land use compatibility impacts from the project, highlights of which are shown on the right-hand side of the slide. and they are encapsulated under the themes of air, so the risk of dust and noise effects from the project on residents' quality of life, including health, which could be worsened by south summer winds. Second, the theme of land, namely the risk of the project on wildlife, habitat loss, its contributions to soil loss and erosion in the area, as well as concerns that the project would not be progressively rehabilitated. And the third theme is water, namely the risk of contamination to the Broken Head Wetland Ecological Reserve and the two aquifers in the Gull Lake area, as well as the potential impacts on Gull Lake water levels. And the fourth theme is local community, namely the risk of the project effects on the broader landscape, the traffic and safety risks of increased heavy equipment and trucks from the project in the area, the risk of the project decreasing property values in the area, and the risk of potential accidents and malfunctions associated with the project and their potential effects on public health and safety and overall quality of life in the area. The second factor contributing to local opposition to the project was that folks' perspectives grew even more strident when they considered the abandoned and active pits and quarries in the Gull Lake area. They're limited to no mitigation to current regulatory standards. Their poor operational management practices, the insufficient regulatory oversight from the province, and their lack of progressive rehabilitation measures. So that's the context, or allow me to summarize the context for the recommendations in our final report. On the one hand, we have a site that the RM could potentially use to support its own public infrastructure initiatives, and this municipal project could save RM and ratepayers' tax dollars. Furthermore, the RM also acknowledges that sufficient care and due diligence would be necessary to determine whether the adverse effects from the project on both the natural and built environments could be appropriately addressed. But on the other hand, we have major opposition to the project that's being fueled by three things. One, the potential adverse effects from the project itself. Two, the cumulative adverse effects from existing and abandoned quarries and pits in the Gull Lake area, which have been communicated by local residents, but to this date remain unquantified. And third, issues regarding the extent of regulatory enforcement by the province, which the province has acknowledged has fallen short and needs improvement. So in essence, what these three issues do is they feed off each other. They intensify the community's mistrust of the RM's intentions and opposition to the project. So with this summarized context in mind, our final report offers the following recommendations. That the RM extend its collaborative efforts with community stakeholders and residents in the Gull Lake area and the broader municipality, as well as with Broken Head Ojibwe Nation and the RM of St. Andrews, in advocating to the province that it enter into a partnership with St. Clements to undertake a cumulative impact assessment, or CIA, of aggregate operations in the Gull Lake area. The intent of cumulative impact assessments, or CIAs, generally is to consider the effects of similar undertakings at longer time periods. So the focus of this CIA would be on active and abandoned gravel pits in the Gull Lake area, as well as the capacity of the Gull Lake area to accommodate future aggregate projects, including the RM's own proposed project at Gull Lake. The CIA process would be similar to typical environmental assessments. Factors would be set up to help the impact analysis, which would be identified from background reports, field tours, interviews with regulatory staff, stakeholders, and the like. The impact analysis would then focus on these factors as they apply to active and abandoned gravel pits. And at the same time, preliminary planning and assessment work would also apply to the RM's own proposed project at Gull Lake, given that the scope of the CIA would also need to have a baseline on which to assess whether the Gull Lake area can accommodate future aggregate projects. Mitigation measures or options would also be figured into the analysis to potentially manage the cumulative effects resulting from the outcome of the impact analysis. And it is also important to note that mitigation may not necessarily correct all potential impacts. So the significance of the effects of those impacts after mitigation would also be evaluated to determine the effectiveness of the mitigation measures themselves. And in addition to all of the impact analysis, mitigation options, factors, cumulative effects analysis, would be the preparation of interim and final reports, which would document the CIA process and would be used as a basis upon which to further collaborate with local and area residents, Broken Head Ojibwe Nation, RM of St. Andrews. The desired outcome from the CIA would be threefold. One, it would serve the broader public interest. It would show that the RM is responding to current concerns about pits and quarries in the Gull Lake area. And it would further inform the RM's future decision on whether to advance its own project beyond the CIA stage. Madam Mayor, Council, Deepak, that concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions from staff and council. Thank you.
Okay, just as a, thank you, Wes, and just as a correction, in your presentation, I think you mentioned collaboration, and you mentioned the arm of arm of St. Andrews. I think you meant arm of Alexander. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was clarified. So that would be in collaboration with the arm of Alexander. Thank you.
Apologies.
No worries.
Makes a little more sense, thank you.
And I'm just going to say before we open it up for comments in the council chamber here, Bob, do you have anything that you would like to add at this point in time?
Nothing further to add, no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to open it up. Is there any questions to the presenter from members of council, first of all? Okay, we all have the report. We all have had an opportunity to look at it. So I'm going to go to our delegations this afternoon. So Darren, did you want to speak to this?
With, if Deb Wyndon could speak first, with Broken Head and Gull Lake could speak after?
Sure.
Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that, yeah.
You want to go first?
Okay. Don't argue.
No, I don't have a whole lot to say. I just want
Okay,
to,
thanks,
I
Dave.
want to thank these guys for doing this report. In the beginning, as we all know, that there was some just miscommunications and bad feelings, sort of. We cleared up most of that, and I want to thank these guys for doing this report. I think it was a good report. It brought a lot to light that, you know, none of us had really considered. We all had our little portions, but to put it all together like that is I think it's really good. And I think it helps everybody in your decision making. Thanks to Deepak, you followed through on everything you said that you would. You know, I know there's a lot of skeptical people who didn't think that it was going to go the way that this is going. I think it's a good process that you're in, and obviously it's still in the beginning stages. There's still a lot of research to do and a lot of communications to be had. in this report, it's got a lot of emails. I've tried to read most of them. There's a lot of good points from good and bad. There's a lot of phone calls that were made to myself. Darren's going to speak more a little bit on some of the finances, but there's still, you know, a lot of points to go to it, and it's a great report for the beginning of the sessions that you're going to have in the future, and hopefully there's no decision made in the next 30 days, and everybody takes the time to make sure, just so, you know, make sure that everybody gets their points in, and the proper decision is made. There's a lot of people affected. It's not just Gull Lake affected, which, you know, there's a lot of people in here that I didn't think it was going to affect at all, but once you read the report and now that I know the direction of water travel and all the other stuff that I've learned in the last little while over this, it's just, there's lots to look at, a lot more than just Gull Lake. So that's pretty much all I have to say right now. There's not a whole lot that I have to, because that's some reports and stuff and some better numbers than I do that are going to forward. So
Okay,
that's
thank
pretty
you.
much it. I just want to say thanks for doing the process the way it's going and, you know, looking for our input.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for that, David, and I do appreciate the comments that you brought forward, that we're kind of trying to do our due diligence and have everybody involved in the report that was done. I think it was very good, and yes, there will be a lot of discussion before any decision is made, so thank you for that.
All right. Thanks.
Peggy, can I just get you to give your names for the record, please?
Yes.
Because it's being recorded. I know you, and some of the other members might, but somebody else watching it may not. And you can just have a seat if you like.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Okay, my name is Peggy Baynard-Atchison. I'm the treasurer of Devlin Inc.
Okay.
Bonjour, Oshawa Mashkode Dejike Dejnikazi Gudo Dem Laska Debwe Bezing Anishinaabe Aki. My name is Taylor. My spirit name is Brown Buffalo, and I'm from Broken Head Ojibwe Nation. I'm also a proud board of directors member for Devlin as well.
Okay, thank you for that. So go ahead, Peggy.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to speak to you after the consultants presented their report. I'm just going to make a few points. Debwendon is a registered charity that has a mission statement to protect the Broken Head Wetland Ecological Reserve and manage the Broken Head Wetland Interpretive Trail. We are fundamentally opposed to this project because it has the potential to contribute to further deterioration of the Gull Lake area and the Broken Head Wetlands in general. Gravel extraction is a non-renewable resource activity. Once it's gone, it's gone. This area, so close to a large center like Winnipeg, has so much potential, but only if we take the care and effort to protect its natural gifts. Instead, some people seem to be actively engaged in stripping it of these gifts as fast as they possibly can for profit. Gravel extraction has been going on for over 60 years, and the Gull Lake area has contributed as much as it can bear up to this point. The idea of starting up another gravel pit, no matter what mitigations are instituted, is abhorrent and against the practical notion of sustainable development to which the RM and provincial government purport to adhere. Only 3%, or 1,240 hectares, of the Broken Head Wetlands is actually protected within the Broken Head Wetlands Ecological Reserve under the Protected Areas Initiative of the Manitoba government. The rest of these important wetlands take up about 40,000 hectares and are unprotected. ERs are established under the Ecological Reserve Act and have the highest protection of any provincially designated sites within Manitoba's protected areas network. Note that under project context, the consultant's report states that a trail was installed in 2016 which extends through the forest into the wetland area, implying that it is within the ER. It is not. The trail lies alongside, but not within the ER. No development is allowed within an ER. Only First Nations such as Broken Head Ojibwe Nation are allowed to continue their traditional rights of hunting, fishing, and harvesting of traditional foods and medicines for personal use. The thing we are most concerned about is that the wetlands recharge area is located outside the ecological reserve, and the proposed gravel project is not only located within that recharge area, but is within 1 kilometer of the south block of EER and within 2 kilometers of the trail. In 1999, the Manitoba government denied the approval of an Environment Act license for a well to supply Gull Lake, which was located across the road from the proposed site. It was shown that this well would have affected the aquifer supplying the wetlands, and this denial set a precedent for not allowing disturbance of the source water due to potential impacts on the wetlands and Moral Springs. Any significant impacts to this aquifer would be disastrous to not only the wetlands, but the unequal diversity of plants and animals found there. As this water moves downslope towards Lake Winnipeg, it is subsequently discharged to the wetlands in the form of upwellings that result in marl ponds. The calcium in this water comes out of solution in these ponds, producing a sediment known as marl, which results in a slightly higher pH. This important characteristic results in a rare calcareous fen with a rare white cedar swamp and the widest variety of orchids and carnivorous plants of any known location in the province. The Broken Head wetlands are also important for protecting and buffering Lake Winnipeg, cleaning the water and acting as a carbon sink. The Manitoba government invested $1 million in resources to build the Interpretive Trail. The RM itself has called the trail and ER a gem that they are proud to recognize within the boundaries of St. Clements. It brings visitors from all parts of Manitoba, Canada, and elsewhere, making it an important tourist destination. We do not want to jeopardize the health of the wetlands and their important ecosystems with another gravel pit that could potentially destroy the wetlands and forests where the trail is located. The consultant's report states that the Groundwater Atlas report produced by the Manitoba government says that gravel operations do not appear to have affected the wetland. However, it neglected to mention that the Atlas report qualified their statement by stating that the wetlands have not been monitored for changes. So we really have no idea of the cumulative impacts of historical gravel extraction. Gull Lake has suffered gravel extraction since the 1950s, and the number of abandoned and working pits around the lake are close to a dozen. Abandoned pits have never been rehabilitated and are an eyesore for residents and tourists. The existing active pits represent a public nuisance and risk in the form of noise, dust, and traffic from large gravel trucks that don't seem to think they should abide by existing speed limits on local roads or highways. Enough is enough, and whether a cumulative impact assessment can adequately discover a level of significant impacts or not, it is unthinkable and unconscionable for any new pits to be developed. Mining away the gravel over a long period of time eats away at the very gravel where the aquifer resides. In fact, the gravel is the aquifer, and the aquifer is the gravel. The water saturates the gravel and creates the aquifer. Continued extraction will ultimately dry up the all-important source water, leading to the deterioration of the wetlands. Removing gravel close to the water table, which we see being done in the existing active pits, can cause massive evaporation and potential for drying out the wetlands. In combination with the drought we are experiencing due to climate change, this presents a double whammy to the wetlands. This has led to the spreading of invasive species and the loss of some endemic species. The RM of St. Clements has a duty to be a role model for environmentally sustainable management of its resources. The decision that is made will be the evidence of where your priorities lie. Are you willing to listen to the people who will be most affected, or will you succumb to the temptation of saving a few dollars? Finally, Gull Lake exists because of a very unique circumstance that occurred during the last ice age. Two glaciers, the Keewatin and the Laurentide, met in the area of the Bel Air Ridge. As they started to recede around 12,000 years ago, a large block of ice broke away from the ice front and was left abandoned in the gravel moraine. and Gull Lake was born. Over the millennia, the beautiful forests, wetlands, and grasslands were created that we enjoy today. We are so lucky to be the benefactors of this unusual legacy. Why would we want to ruin it?
Thank you very much, Peggy.
And I have a couple of copies
Oh,
for
good.
the council, as well as some information on the ecological reserve that's on the
Perfect.
website.
DPAC will come around and get it.
Sure.
Thank you. And did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, actually, I won't take up too much of your time as well. Peggy pretty much touched on all the environmental aspects of everything, but I hope that you can take into consideration the traditional lands of my people as well as the people of Treaty 1 territory and the Treaty 1 nation here in Manitoba. There's 7 nations that use this land for medicine picking, ceremonies, fasting, and much more. My ancestors, my grandparents before them have all been using this land, and to think that our water and our lands could be depleted breaks my heart. Take it as an act of reconciliation to not allow this industry to continue. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
So I'm gonna start by thanking the smiley faces for making the presentation. My face and my tone is going to sound somewhat adversarial, and I'm a very pointed person, so with all due respect, as most of you who know me will understand, I have a lot invested in what's happening.
Before you go any further, do you want to just give us your name for the record?
Darren, Gavin, President of the Gull Lake Ratepayers Association. I'm also sitting on the Gull Lake Basin Management Board. I currently reside in Gull Lake at number 20 Arnholt. I am the closest neighbor to the Alexander Pit as well as the Chabot Pit. I would welcome any of you to come and sit on my deck at 6 o'clock in the morning on any given day and listen as both pits today are currently crushing. The traffic is treacherous, the noise, including working outside operations, calls to the bylaw officers to deal with it were not returned nor acted upon. This speaks towards the pitfalls in enforcement, both provincial and municipal. A little history for you. My family has owned the property since the mid-1950s. My father had previously owned the property known as the Green Space at the corner of Arnholt and Stead Road. Prior to selling it to the RM, he had attempted to buy the gravel pit that was in operation across the street from the current Green Space. His intention back then, in the 50s, was to develop golfing, recreation. He wanted an end to the pits back then. There's my investment in this. I have been involved with the Gull Lake awareness and the discussions with the province since December of 2015, our very first meeting with the province to discuss gravel pits. The province recently released an Engage Manitoba addressing the concerns in the area. We are currently awaiting the results of the survey to meet with the minister, to Mr. Eichhardt, I believe it is, to discuss these issues. The province currently has new and renewed leases for quarries on hold until a review of the current procedures, including, I don't know if council is aware of this or not, an existing application for another new pit at the corner of 12 and Sherwood Road. If
Trying to get my bearings.
Yeah, if in fact, worst case scenario, if a pit is granted there, that will link up the old pit across from CPAC and Chabot's pit at the corner, which in essence, all of Highway 12, north of Stead Road, to Highway 59 will be a gravel pit. The RM supported Gull Lake against the Chabot pit. I'd like to read something. It's a resolution dated December 15th, 2015, moved by Councillor Sutherland and seconded by Councillor Bassarowicz. Whereas residents of Gull Lake have expressed concerns regarding the lake and the possible effects of development of a new gravel pit in the arm of Alexandra, which is in the immediate vicinity of Gull Lake. Whereas Council agrees that formal regarding water levels and possibly an environmental impact study of the potential damage to the lake this gravel pit excavation could cause the lake would be prudent. Therefore, be it resolved that the Minister of Conservation be requested to take action to address the concerns of the Gull Lake residents insofar as the potential damage the excavation of the gravel pit could cause, and the results of any investigation be shared with the RM of St. Clements and the residents of Gull Lake. This was dated December 16, 2015, shortly after we began our conversations with the province with respect to quarantine the area. Realizing this letter addresses the Chabot pit specifically, it should be noted that the Chabot pit is in very close proximity as to where your proposed pit will be. It's about the same distance, folks. I know because I sit between all of it. I would like to submit in conversation with the province that they have admitted that their groundwater measuring device is really ineffective. So speaking to the report that the consultants referred to, the groundwater atlas report, the province has said that their measuring device is ineffective, and we are in conversation with them to try and set something up. There is nothing to measure what is happening to our lake. Taking into consideration the drought, since the fall time, when the weather cooled off and we did get rain, the lake level continues to drop. Folks, I have over 20 feet of shoreline that I didn't have as a kid. That needs to be discussed. I would like to take time to remind Council that the community of Gull Lake has worked very hard to protect the area. The aerator project, the weir, and the zebra mussel program that the province uses as a model are three strong examples of this community's involvement to protect themselves. Savings of $175,000 per year to taxpayers has no impact on us. With a tax roll of about 8,000 taxpayers, that comes out to $21.88 per taxpayer. 7 months ago, our MLA spoke on congratulating the RM of St. Clements. He spoke of the area in terms of tourism and the place for a staycation. Message doesn't speak of the resource for gravel. I would suggest that any further quarrying will not sustain our home. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Darren.
It's up to council if they have any questions or any comments.
Okay, council members, do you have any questions or comments either for the consultants or any of the presenters this afternoon?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, if I could just add.
Sure.
In my involvement, when we began this process in 2015, we had asked the province for a cumulative assessment of the area. At the time, we were told that process is hundreds of thousands of dollars. If in fact the RM is to do the right thing, and whether it's partner with the province, have the province do it, whatever the case might be, again, the savings of $174,000 per year to taxpayers is really insignificant. I think I would ask that, if possible, all council members read the groundwater atlas report submitted by the province and take a good hard look at what it's going to cost to ensure everybody that this is a project that can be done safely and done with keeping the area's protection, the environment in mind.
Okay, thank you for that addition, Darren. Yes, Peggy.
Yeah, I would also like to make a comment about the cumulative impact assessment. As Darren says, I'm not sure how much it would cost. It might be a little less than that,
Okay.
but hopefully.
This is what the
But the thing is that in the report, it states, it recommends that the RM collaborate with the province to do this assessment. Under the Manitoba Environment Act, there is no requirement for the province to do an assessment. In fact, the RM as the proponent has no requirement to do an assessment, but it doesn't stop you from actually making the decision to do one in the best interest of the RM and the public outcry. So I will be very interested to see, whether there will be an actual assessment or what else will come out of this.
Well, I think that, this is the start of the process, and I do appreciate you all coming in today, and council will be having some discussion, and I guess for my part of it, I am quite sure that all of council will agree that if there is anything further that we can do as far as studies and things like that are concerned, we will be looking at all of those, and we will be working with our consultants and with the province. If it comes to a point where we have to have further public consultation with a wider group perhaps, I am quite sure that this council is willing to do that. I mean, I have to give you folks credit too, and I know that, the WEIR and those things have been around for quite some time, but I really do have to give Dave Cairns credit for the Zebra Mussel program. I think that was one of the best things that's been done over there. And I think that this council is willing to work with everybody and try and do the best thing for everybody involved. Okay? Anybody else have any comments?
Just one question. You said that somebody else was opening up a pit. Would that have been the Ready Mix old pit, or which pit are you referring to?
They're digging a new pit. That's next to the old Ready Mix pit across from CPAC.
And who would that be that's in there?
I wasn't told.
Okay. So it's private property then that somebody's digging in there?
No, they're applying for a lease. It's government property.
Oh, it is government.
That by the way, is zoned recreational.
Okay.
But there is a hold
There
on
is a hold,
new
yes.
quarry leases and quarry renewals right now by the province.
And there's 5 active pits in the area.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Just a point of clarification, Madam Mayor, that pit has nothing to do with the RM, and the province can still go ahead and approve that regardless.
Right, the one that's by CPAC.
Correct.
Yeah.
As well, the RM may still require, just for a point of clarification, gravel is integral to the part of delivery of services for the RM. So I want to make sure that that's clear, that gravel is needed, and if it's going to come, it's going to come from some of those pits because they
There's a
are
lot
at
of
the close
gravel in the
distance.
RM that isn't around Galway.
If you drive down Thompson Road, it just
I
off.
appreciate that. It's where the pits are, it's where the work is being done, is where it's going to be bought from. If the RM has lands or other pits, they'll always explore those. I just wanted to make sure there's a point of clarification here, that gravel is integral to the delivery of service to support Gull Lake and the entire RM.
It's not a question of, nobody disagrees with the importance of gravel, but at some point, again, I'm going to state there has to be a breaking point between dollars for gravel and the environment. I live out there.
Mr. Babiak, I'm not going to debate, I'm just giving you a point of clarification.
Okay. I'm giving you a point from.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions from members of council? Okay, so I would like to thank everybody for coming in this afternoon. Good presentations, and it is all recorded, and I know I'll be listening to everything again probably in the next couple of days. So if there is the next steps forward, Deepak will be getting a hold of you. If not Deepak, it will be our consultant. So thank you all very much for coming in this afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Huh? No, it was on Huckles for
Stop the
that.
recording.
Is recording started?
On the Zoom, but this recording is still going.
Hello, Derek.
Hello,
How are you?
I am upright. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
That's a good thing.
But we kind of chuckled because I said to Sheldon, why are you here? And he says, Derek's coming to talk to you guys. And I went, oh, okay. We had you on the agenda, just not regarding what you were coming about, so. What are you looking for, a quick share?
Yeah, is there a...
There should be one, is there one on that,
Oh, on the podium maybe?
yeah. Is there one on the podium?
No.
Oh, I know where it is.
It's
right
cookies.
Is it by the cookies?
No.
There was one, oh, there it is.
Oh, perfect. I can take my mask off?
Yes, in here you can take your mask off.
I will stop
And
sharing
sorry
mine.
to keep you waiting, we were a little late getting going and our other delegations took a little longer, so.
No, that's quite all right.
Just a chat.
Do I need to connect to Wi-Fi or should it just go through?
It should, it should.
It's
It
linked
goes
in
solid if you logged in yet on your computer.
It's just booted up.
Yeah. So once the computer, once you get into Windows, then it should become a solid line. I'll just unplug mine just to play it safe, just in case. Do you have ClickShare on your computer?
I should. I know
You
I've
do,
used
yeah,
it
you
here
would
before.
make it, make it die.
I've used it in East St. Paul as well. I'll do the old unplugged one package.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do the old trick. Are you
Here's
here
mine,
this evening
just in
also?
case.
He's the man.
Here's the other one, just in case that one doesn't work.
Okay.
Well, that coffee's probably like tar.
Yes.
Perfect. You guys.
Shoot.
Yeah.
You have a long day ahead of us.
Solutions are wrong in your mouth slower.
Keep you awake.
Yep. Oh, tastes like that too.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
We're starting.
Yeah, it's there.
There.
Go ahead. Click on the button.
Computer, I think, was just doing a scan. Didn't trust your device.
Wouldn't be surprised. Nobody trusts us.
Not climbing.
So, I understand you wanted to talk about panhandle lots, as well as just a brief overview of secondary plan amendment processes. So that's what I came here just to have a quick discussion.
And what was the first thing you said?
Panhandle,
lots.
flag shape.
Okay.
Sorry, flag shape,
Okay.
panhandle.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
That's what I thought you meant, but
Yeah.
I want to make sure.
for sure. So I'm just going to share my screen. Oh, good, you can see it all in front of you. All right. So I thought I'd just take you briefly through kind of Cole's notes on the secondary plan amendment process first. It's probably the simplest thing, probably not much debate about that. I've put together just a quick table for you, just to outline the big steps. and who does what, who's responsible for what, as well as kind of how long do things take. So anytime there's a secondary plan amendment, one thing that we do always encourage, whether it's with the municipality or a landowner, have a pre-application meeting with us so we can problem solve before an application actually is submitted to the office. And we always say, let's talk about that for a couple of weeks, something like that in terms of a timeline. Once an application is submitted, that's sort of step 2, formally submitted to our office. I'm sorry, I'm putting on the responsibility because I'm assuming the RMs would actually be making this application for changing the secondary plan amendment. Once an application is submitted, it's very similar to a zoning bylaw amendment. Our office puts together the physical legal bylaw itself, a memo to council on first reading and sort of your steps to take in that. And that takes about a month from the time that we put things together to get to a council meeting, just with the sort of schedule of calendar events. After council gives something first reading, we then go into, kind of skip down to step 5, and we're required by law to circulate the bylaw to the government agencies, as well as adjacent municipalities and planning districts to get comments in preparation for a public hearing. That takes about a month. We're supposed to give everyone 27 days under the Planning Act. And during that time, we also put ads in the newspaper, send out, if it's of a specific property, we'll send out notification to people, as well as our office will start preparing the planner's report with our recommendation, gathering all that information and analysis for council. And then we come to the council meeting where you have your public hearing. And you've been through those, you know what those are all about. It's fun times, right?
Yes.
Always a fun time. And at the same meeting as a public hearing, you can also give a bylaw second reading. If there are no objections, or there aren't enough objections to trigger an appeal hearing, you can give it third reading. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky with the new changes under the Planning Act. If there are enough people that trigger an appeal hearing, the appeal no longer goes to the Red River Planning District, it now goes to the Municipal Board, where you can bank on at least 6 months of process. The legislation says that they must hold it should be no more than 6 months of process. They must hold a meeting, an appeal hearing, within 4 months of them receiving the appeal. And then after they have a meeting, they have to make a decision within 2 months. So it's pretty common when I've been to municipal board that after a hearing, you get a decision at least a month later. They're pretty backlogged and don't have a whole lot of staff that can do these things. So I understand that through some of the learning sessions that we've had with the province, they're going to be ramping up resources and process for the municipal board. So a couple other things that I wanted to take you through.
Wait, before you
Oh,
go.
sorry.
No, that's okay. Before you go past this screen, is there a threshold for the number of people that trigger a public hearing that goes to the municipal board?
Yes, and it depends on the situation. So if we're dealing with a site-specific property, so like a redesignation,
Right.
it depends on whether it's in an urban or rural context. If it's in a rural context, it's 50% of, has to be at least 50% of those within the notification radius. So when you send out notifications to
So
people.
if it's 300 feet, if that radius is 300 feet, then it would be 50% of those living within that 300 or over.
Exactly, and it's not property owners, it's those that are 18 years or older, so those that can vote.
Okay.
So we have seen scenarios in other municipalities where, I mean, the title's under one name, but there's 2 adults and 2 adult children in the house, and they all sign up in objection or support. So you have to take those things into account. If it's in an urban context, you know, and I would say kind of this area, the East Selkirk area would be an urban context, it has to be at least 25 people. Doesn't matter if it's within a certain radius, just 25 people.
Okay.
If it's a text amendments. We're not dealing with specific property, we're dealing with just general policy. The threshold would be 25 people. So it used to be worse than that, I think, as you recall. It used to be if just one person had an issue with it, that triggered an appeal hearing and all that work and effort. So this came out a couple of years ago. The province put some more thresholds on it, I just think, to try and get rid of the nuisance kind of complaints. Because they were starting to see, and we were starting to see as well, people objecting that weren't even living anywhere near the subject property, and sometimes not even in the same municipality. So didn't have an investment in the municipality or anything, just happened to stumble across a public hearing. So,
Okay, thank you.
was there anything else bug up the screen? I mean, it can get a little more complicated.
Yeah.
This is just kind of the Coles notes.
It's just unfortunate that with Bill 37, they require expediency to help our ratepayers, which is a good thing because it gets things done quicker, but yet on the appeal hearing, it takes them 6 months, if not longer, to come to their decision.
Yeah, and I can talk about appeals a little bit more, and it can get worse than just the one that I show up there. So,
With a child.
Yeah, that's...
yeah.
But that's only if 25 people sign up for it, otherwise nothing's held up.
That's correct. And quite often what we'll do is, especially if it's in an urban context and we're dealing with a specific property, we'll ask council to close the public hearing, but not give second reading, give us a chance to actually, cross-reference names and where they live and all that kind of stuff, so we can see if the threshold has been met. So, under Bill 38, which is in effect now, with the changes to the Planning Act as of October 29th, as I said, all appeals now go to the municipal board, not the RPD. So if someone appeals a secondary plan amendment, you're going to go off to the municipal board. And it's just the time and delays with that. There's also some items that you need to be aware of. Now, if the municipality is the applicant, I'm not perceiving a problem, but just so you're aware, with rezonings as well as with secondary plan amendments, if you're dealing with a property owner who comes forward, from the time that we get an application, council has to have a public hearing within 90 days of that. So, and that's at the time that Red River Planning District processes the check for the application. On that day is the clock starts. And you have to have a public hearing. So you gotta get through first reading, advertisement, all that kind of stuff. You are allowed under these changes to have a public hearing before you give first reading to a bylaw, but the province hasn't been able to clear that up to us how that legally can happen, because I don't know how you can advertise for a hearing when council hasn't even assigned a bylaw for it. So, I've been told it's no big deal from the provincial people. They still can't answer the question. So we'll wait for a few months until we get some clarification on that. So anyways, that's something I just want you to kind of keep in the back of your head as we move forward. Similar to the municipal board, after you have a public hearing, when you close this, you have to make a decision within 60 days. So if you, as a council, don't have enough information at a public hearing, if you need more information, if you need our office to track down something, I would recommend moving forward, you table the item and adjourn the public hearing to a later date to request specific information. That way you haven't stopped the clock on the public hearing and started the clock on when you have to make a decision on it. Because remember, when you don't meet these thresholds of timelines, applicants can appeal. So the other thing to keep into account as we move forward with new applications, if council wants to reject an application, and this relates to secondary plans, rezonings, subdivisions, as well as conditional uses, you have to provide written reasons of why council is rejecting it. We're not yet clear how exactly you do that, because as you speak as one body, there are 7 individuals on your council that you all have your own minds, and you might have a split council on a vote. You might all agree that it should be rejected, but you might have different reasons of why you think it should be rejected. So on that note, I can tell you that we've been working with Greg Tramley, our municipal lawyer, to come up with some next steps and to maybe help councils through what that might mean and how your decisions might look going forward in the absence, once again, of the province having some regulations on how to guide you. So we're working on that, and we're hoping to have something early in the new year, because there are some applications that have come forward to our different councils. This is going to be an issue. So just on the topic of appeals to the municipal board, especially when we're dealing with bylaw amendments, whether that's secondary plans or rezonings. So a few things to keep in mind. If you don't meet the thresholds for timelines, an applicant can appeal that to the municipal board. If you reject an application, the applicant can appeal that to the municipal board. If you approve an application and the public doesn't like it and there's enough of them, that can be appealed to the municipal board. It's quite possible, I think we've talked about this before when we had, probably about a year or so ago, I think we had a session for all of our councils, when it was originally Bill 48, when it was called that, coming forward. There is possibly a scenario out there where you could be appealed if you don't work fast enough. You could be appealed by the public if you approve something. If you want to then reject it later on, you can be appealed on that. And even if you do approve something and say, this is all fine, but we're going to have the applicant enter into a development agreement, guess what? They can appeal that as well. So there's a potential you could have an application, and worst case scenario, you could actually go to the municipal board 4 times if things are not going smooth. So with that, I think it's going to be highly important that our office gives you as much information as we can so you can make the right decisions. In terms of the timelines, yeah, you're under timelines now to make decisions, and personally I think that's probably a good thing that's been put into the Planning Act. There are some municipalities in Manitoba where we've heard of horror stories where they've just been holding up applicants just for the sake of whatever. They've never been able to have their day in front of council for months and months and months, so it puts accountability on municipalities and administrations to move things along. But I had a similar conversation with this in St. Paul yesterday. That is a double-edged sword. The applicants are also going to be held to a higher standard, because if they don't come forward to you with an application that's full of information that addresses all your concerns, you may have to reject something just on that basis. There is no more opportunity anymore with these tight timelines for councils to say, let's hold on, let's pause for a moment, let's let the applicant do a course correction. No, you can't do that anymore. Because of the timelines, you could be appealed on that. So in some of our other municipalities, we are looking at applications that are so lacking in information, they might be rejected just based on that. So yeah, it is a bit of a double-edged sword. You're going to be held to a higher standard of moving things along quickly, but the applicants need to come prepared with all the information. So those pre-applications with our office, with your office, are going to become absolutely key for people to move forward. So that was my soapbox on Bill 37 for a moment there. So did you guys have any questions? And like I said, we're going to get Greg involved, and he's going to be coming to you guys and having a big session on how to move forward with some of these things.
Councillor Spicer, I see, has his hand up.
Yes, Councillor.
Hey, nobody has any questions, so I'm going to ask you 3. So, my understanding, first question, my understanding is that, I mean, you put it pretty clear, right? So if something comes to council, we ask for more information. If we don't get what we like, we should probably reject it. If they don't get back to us, we should probably reject it. But they also have the option to, like, isn't there some way that we can do some kind of agreement that the clock stops or not really?
The
Like
only-
if the ball's in their court, I
Yep.
mean,
So at certain points in the whole application process, the only way I can see the clock stopping is if, before it gets to council at a hearing or what have you, if the applicant actually approaches us and says,
yeah.
we made a mistake, we want to slow this down, can I go do some more research, gather some more information, and then have it move forward? I would say to the applicant, that's fine, but you better give me that in writing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
you
if
need
anything's
their
ever challenged,
concurrence.
I want a letter saying, you know, I, Mr. Smith, Ms. Jones said, I'm going to put this on hold until you hear back from it. So that, yeah, that is one way.
Okay, so my second one is a hypothetical. So let's say we're going through that process. And we haven't signed anything, we've asked them for more information. And then, of course, they come in at the final moment. Because this never happens, right? They come in at the final moment, and the only way that we're gonna meet the timeline is if we have a special meeting with council. Is there provision then that there can be some type of a charge? The council can charge those people because we're having that special meeting? See, that should be in
There's nothing that I can see under the Planning Act or the Municipal Act that
there.
will allow.
I didn't think
for
there
that.
was,
Yeah.
but there should be.
Okay, Deepak's turn.
Just a couple of things. I guess first,
Go
I
ahead.
didn't want to lose track of your first point and your second point. The first point is the appeal for timelines can only be by the applicant,
That's correct.
not by the member of the public. Okay, so that's critical. So if an applicant is requesting for an extension, then they don't have any basis to go for an appeal to the municipal board.
Yeah.
If the applicant is aware of a delay and says that they don't have an issue with it, that doesn't mean you have to have. So the timelines are there as a requirement, so that council does not unduly hold up an approval without just cause. But timelines have an impact, whether the applicant has provided information on those things, so that's taken into consideration. So at the end of the day, it'll depend on how quickly the information was provided, what the request of the applicant was, and the level of communication with the applicant. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear,
Yeah.
so that we weren't always having to schedule meetings or be forced to meet certain timelines. It may be at the request of the applicant that we do it.
And that's an excellent point. I mean, this is something that I'm hoping is going to get fleshed out in the regulations that the province comes up with. But something that we posed to Greg Tremblay as well that he's going to try and address is I'm sure there are going to be scenarios where you don't meet the actual timeline, but it's still a reasonable amount of time. You know, like, we didn't meet 90 days, but we could get it at 95. Well, why is that? Well, just the way the council schedules work for the year, or there was a statutory holiday, or something like that. My experience in going to the municipal board is, has council or the planning district acted in a reasonable way? You know, so
Just
I think
another
that's-
point
yeah.
on that. Let's say council doesn't approve something day 91. And if the applicant appeals, then then everything stops, right, until the appeal is dealt with. So that's a 6-month now delay in response from the municipal board before you come back. So if you're complaining about time,
Yeah, you've got to make a good
it's
thought
going to
process.
be, exactly, because
if
you could
want
be,
to appeal or not.
yeah, you could be turning a 100-day approval situation to 300-day approval situation.
Third one's easier. Conditional uses were dropped out of the appeal process to the municipal board, is that correct?
Yes and no. So conditional, they originally had variances and conditional uses in there. They dropped variances completely out. They dropped conditional uses out, except if it's a conditional use for an intensive livestock operation or a quarry.
Quarry.
Conditional use.
Yeah.
Conditional use, which applies
So,
to.
I'm not familiar
which
with the
applies
agenda
to
for today,
private
but I thought that might be
quarries,
good information.
not the public.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I was thinking-
Sorry, I was leading you in there to something else.
So, any other questions?
okay, any other questions from members of council? I'm not sure if that was kind of the end of Derek's presentation or if he was gonna go a little bit further here.
Just
so-
on that, I just want to give council just a broad overview. I should also state, just if we do get in the situation of an appeal, it wouldn't be our office that's going to be representing you anymore. It would be the municipality that you have to get somebody to represent you. What would likely happen in the scenario is, because remember, the appeal is not going to be against the planning district anymore, it's going to be against the municipality, so you have to defend yourself. What will likely happen is myself or one of the planners in our office will end up being called by you or the other side for expert testimony. So we can't, serve two masters in that case, so it's going to be interesting over the
I was
next few
gonna say,
years.
that will be very interesting.
Yeah, so.
Okay, we've been being the first on a lot of stuff, so.
Yeah.
The critical point on that is that we have to have the level of documentation and process of procedures nailed, as we've been discussing.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so that was just on that, and I know you also wanted me to come back and talk a little bit on panhandle or flag lots, just some pros and cons out there. So, once again, just a very simple, broad overview. I'm sure there's more pros, I'm sure there's more cons. So these are just some major things, in the pros category. Panhandle or flag-shaped lots, they offer opportunities for infill or densification in an area where you may not normally have it. And even in some cases where the rear of the lot, the actual flag-shaped lot, they can always sometimes be a nice sort of secluded area away. In terms of cons, there's an increased service cost for panhandle lots. I think this is pretty obvious, especially when you see some of these very rural cases where you have a 200-300 foot long driveway and all of a sudden sewer becomes available. Like, my God, that's a lot of height to put it on a property and a lot of costs that they would have to incur. So if you have services in an area, you want to keep that in mind. It's depending on the area, it could contribute to a lack of uniformed neighborhood character. If you have an area that has a very distinctive character in terms of houses and streetscape and the image that you get as you drive down, having a bunch of small little openings of the flag-shaped area, that could completely change that. And could be a detriment to the character of the neighborhood, especially if you're trying to preserve a certain character. If you're not, well then, fine, fill your boots. What we do see from a law enforcement perspective are panhandle flag-shaped lots, disputes between neighbors. We see those quite often in our office, people complaining, his driveway is draining onto my property and the crest of the driveway is too tall and it's getting onto my lawn, and shared driveway maintenance and people complaining about that. Privacy, because sometimes now you have someone who did have the original house and now their backyard, they're looking at another house now, and I think people just don't tend to realize that. So we get those kind of complaints coming forward, those nuisance complaints that will come forward to you as well. And then just the final thing, or one of the final bigger things, is access can sometimes be a challenge for these flag-shaped lots, especially if they're long and narrow. Access for emergency vehicles, or even access for moving trucks or delivery trucks are sometimes an issue. We've seen panhandle lots created where the actual panhandle one is like 10 feet wide, and that's it. Fit your driveway and everything in 10 feet wide, so those are sort of worst case scenarios. So things to consider if council does want to allow for them, and maybe they are a good idea in certain areas. What are the available municipal services in any given area? That's going to influence whether you want them or not. Like I said, if you have an area that's already got services, maybe that's going to be cost prohibitive to some people if they want to have maybe panhandle lots. What is the streetscape and the neighborhood character? Is it appropriate to change that up? Because this is a different form of development. What is the natural topography of the area? Are we dealing with a hilly area? Are we dealing with rears of properties that you can't develop because of some sort of hazard issue or something like that? Is that the case? Is that maybe a reason to allow for them because you can't do any other kind of development otherwise? Or is it just a standard, good flat piece of prairie that you can develop easily? Area zoning setbacks always seem to be an issue when people are applying for building permits because now you are dealing with side yards and things that sometimes don't quite fit a house traditionally, or you have to move the house into an area where homeowners didn't originally contemplate. As well as building type is an issue to think about when you want to create panhandle lots. Are we talking about houses or are we talking about multifamily? Those are two completely different things. Where I live in the city, drive down Roblin, and there was a panhandle lot created where they have four 4-unit townhouses and a nice little skinny driveway. And I keep thinking, my God, someone trying to get out on 8 o'clock in the morning onto Roblin, all those cars at one point. Maybe that would have been okay for one house, but for 16 units, I don't know about that. But so there's those things you got to take into account, just as well as the long-range plan for an area. What have you actually planned for a specific area? Is it residential? Is it panhandles? Is it a different type of a streetscape or character you're trying to achieve? And would a panhandle lots contribute or take away from that? And then once again, are we talking about urban or rural? There's different impacts when we're talking about urban and rural context. If we're talking about an urban context and creating panhandles, and you're thinking 50 years into the future, if you create a bunch of panhandles and you want to see further densification or have that opportunity 50 years into the future, that's an incredibly hard exercise to try and put together all these wonky panhandle lots or flag-shaped lots in the future. I can speak from experience of trying to make that happen when I was practicing out in BC. It's next to impossible. It's about as challenging, and I would say even more challenging, than what you see in South St. Clements with those little skinny river lots. Trying to get people to pull all those together, that's a difficult process to go through. Panhandles, now imagine there's a bunch of jogs in all those little skinny lots. It's a bit of a nightmare. So, just some things to consider. Another thing to think about, you're not the only municipality who's been trying to think about this stuff. There's lots of municipalities across Canada who do have regulations on panhandles, when they're not allowed, where they might be considered, under what circumstances. There's lots of different bylaws out there that will talk about minimum widths of a panhandle lot. That scenario where you have only 10 feet wide of an access. A lot of municipalities are like, nope, it's got to be bigger than that. So we know you got good setbacks from cars next to houses and all that kind of stuff. You can imagine in some urban context where you have a 1 meter setback for the house from the property line, and you got a car whizzing by that as they go to the back of the lot to the next house. It isn't not the best scenario. So there's all sorts of things that are out there if you want to consider these. We can bring those ideas forward and try and work out what a bylaw amendment might look like. So.
You have access to that?
Yeah, it's all on the internet. I have one of my assistants, he just did a simple Google search from a bunch of municipalities and found a bunch of links and has a bunch of links and stuff right here for me. Just, taking a couple hours to find some things. So, yeah.
Okay, any questions from council regarding the flag-shaped lots? And how to go about our extending the serviced area for East Selkirk, I guess. Go ahead,
Councilor Spicer has
Scott.
3 questions.
No, he only is allowed one now.
You use it up, you get 4 per council meeting, that's it.
The
You're done.
flag-shaped lot discussion was probably initiated by me because, I mean, maybe I heard it wrong, but shortly after I got on council, I was told that we didn't allow them. And then we went through a few meetings and we allowed a few, so then I asked for the policy. Well, there isn't one. So that's probably what spurred this presentation.
Well, I think there's probably a couple of things that spurred it. I mean, you know, there was one subdivision, actually 2 subdivisions, one we said no, one we said yes. So, you know, I think it's something that we have to look at as a council, and is it on a case-by-case basis where, depending if it fits in the area. I get what Derek's saying, if there's just like a skinny little driveway, you know, maybe that's not acceptable, because if you have to get an emergency vehicle down there, you might not be able to. But I think that's a discussion that we have to have amongst ourselves to see what we want and where we want to go with it.
Like, I think a little bit of research isn't a bad thing, because, you know, maybe the determining factor is minimum lot width. Because you're right, we don't want, it's not just a fire truck getting down there. It's drainage, right? You brought up drainage issues, so
There's some tar over
lots
there.
of different
There's
things.
some tar over there.
That won't even help me, so. Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Derek? I gotta back up the bus for a minute. If we decide to, change our bylaw or our settlement center area, just, I know you had it all on the screen there, rough estimate of how long that would take.
If everything goes nice and smooth, usually what I tell people is to get to second reading,
Right.
give it about 2-3 months, just depending on when the application comes in council schedules.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just a rough idea.
We had 4 months or a year,
Oh, okay.
depending on
Yeah,
if it
Yeah.
gets appealed.
okay.
Third reading sometimes is done at a different meeting, it just all
Yeah.
depends, but yeah, a couple, 3 months to get to that public hearing, second reading stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else from members of council, I think we'll let you go and work at the office for a couple more hours, and then you can come back.
Well, thank you.
Is it you or Bobbin coming?
I'm coming tonight. We have you folks, we have St. Andrews, we have East St. Paul, and I had West St. Paul this morning, so.
And today is Pog's last day, if I remember correctly, or is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow is his last day, so.
He's leaving?
No, he's taking maternal leave.
Oh.
Yeah.
Remember I said before he's doing soccer?
Yes.
No, he's taking paternal leave. so-
Tell them we're really disappointed, and that's the rumor in their
Yeah.
council.
Yeah, we heard you're leaving organizations and everyone's disappointed in St. Paul.
So are you
Imagine-
coming at 6?
I'm coming at 6 o'clock tonight, so I'll be here with those files to help you out as best as I can. So.
Because you know, Bob, you go, I'm not going nowhere, like we're talking about.
Yeah, I'd be very concerned, yes. Yes, is there anything else you guys need while you're down
No,
here?
I think that's it.
If not, you'll see me in a couple of hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the next couple of hours and make the next.
You're done with questions though for the whole evening.
Maybe.
Have a cookie, take a
Have to
cookie.
make a cookie.
Okay,
So
I'll
we've
leave it
got
to you.
25 people that are against something going on. Do they have to be in that area, or can it be like,
Or just in the RM.
or even on the city
No,
wetland?
he said they gotta be
Anybody?
from,
They gotta be from the area.
Yeah, so it depends on the type of the thing. It's, no, sorry, if you're in a rural context, it's gotta be 50% of the people of the registered voters within that area.
Okay,
If we're dealing with a more urban context, where we're dealing with the 25 people threshold,
that's one.
doesn't matter.
So they
So long as we got 25 people that are over the age of 18,
okay, I didn't, I thought,
Oh, I
I
thought, yeah.
thought you meant it still had to be within that 300-meter zone.
Because that's
It's
only
ridiculous.
urban. It's like, you know, we did that,
You could have
like
somebody from Grand Rapids
Yes. We're gonna be more-
Yes.
So,
doing
yeah,
something in South Lawn.
so in the urban area, it's 300 meters, like
That
they
they put
get
the notice
the
out.
name.
They put the notice out, but people push it.
It's the same, so the notification distance is the same for both. It's 100 meters, about 300 feet.
Yep.
And they say in the rural areas, 50% of people in that area.
So-
That makes sense. In a rural area, you could just have 2 neighbors and that's it. So, but in an urban context, yeah, it changes to 25 people. Yeah.
Interesting.
Still lots of cookies.
We're not on enough.
Thanks, folks.
There's a reason.
All right, so, is that today going to the next?
I thought maybe he's cleaning his.
No, I'll be notified, no worries. All right.
Gavin agreed.
Sheldon,
Maybe
have
Mr.
a cookie.
No,
Take one home.
that'll get me fat.
Take one home for your old lady, tell her to give her a cookie.
Thanks anyway.
Okay. Okay, so here, we're finally at number 5 on our agenda from earlier today, which is communications for action, and I'll just get Deepak to get his click share going again.
So this is an invitation, Madam Mayor, to the next bar meeting, which will be Thursday, January 6th, in the Arm Attaché.
I know we all had our sheets on our desk earlier today, so I'm going to ask for the resolution.
I think we could just add council.
Yeah.
And so, resolved, Mayor Feeble-Corn and councillors be authorized to attend the ARM meeting in the Arm Attaché on Thursday, January 6th, 2023.
Moved by Councillor Spicer, seconded by Councillor Strang. And before I call for the question, I'm going to just say to Deepak, if you would like to attend, you're more than welcome to attend with us.
Thank you, Mayor.
So I'll now call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, new and other business. The first.
They come down as the speaker or something.
New and other business, we have number 6 on our agenda. 6.1 is the position for the senior elections officer for the upcoming 2022 election. And if I could have the resolution, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas Section 10A of the Municipal Councils and School Boards Election Act requires each municipality to appoint a senior elections official, SEO, who will be responsible to manage and conduct all aspects of municipal elections. Therefore, be it resolved that Sue Sutherland is hereby appointed to the position of SEO for the rural municipality of St. Clements for the 2022 municipal elections.
Can I have a mover in, please? Councillor Boulanger, Councillor Sutherland seconds. I guess the question I had, do we have to have a date in there, start date for her,
It'll be as of
or? Okay,
the resolution date.
okay. Go ahead.
Are we 100% responsible for that, or is there problems taking anything for elections?
It's just ours.
Yeah. Okay, had a mover, had a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next one we have is tax sale reserve bid.
This is for the tax sale reserves, so whereas the date of the 2021 tax sale has been set for December 8th, since we already had this in 2021 at the public auction to commence at 12 p.m. and whereas pursuant to Section 372 of the Municipal Act of Municipality may set a reserve bid in the amount, the tax arrears and cost in respect to the property. Therefore, be it resolved, the rural municipality of St. Clements place a reserve bid on all properties in the amount of all arrears and costs in respect to each property offered for sale at the public auction. Just for information for council, we had one property that was put up for tax sale. It was a landlocked piece of parcel, and the property owners had chosen, as opposed to paying taxes on the rest, to go on tax sale. And it was bid and purchased.
Is it triangular in shape?
It was in what part, Brett? Do you recall?
Near Grand Marais.
Near Grand Marais.
In the north.
Oh, not the piece of property triangle?
No.
Okay, Deepak has read the resolution. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowic, second, please. Councillor Sutherland, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Municipal Relations Assessment Services.
This is our regular agreement that, for assessment services from the province of Manitoba. And so what we have is a resolution where the agreements that have been entered into between the property owners and the municipal assessment services with the roll numbers. If I can, I'll leave that there.
You go right ahead, but I'm a little confused. Why are we having these agreements?
These are agreements that the assessment department developed with those property owners related to their assessments. And so they still have to come back to us because they entered into them, and then we are the ones accepting it at the end of the day.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the changed assessment that they
Yes.
agreed to, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It looks like most of them were somewhat errors. Like the property owners came back with more information.
Yes, usually where the assessment department has come to some level of agreement that the property owner was appealing on for some reason or other. So whereas the following listed agreements have been entered into between the respective property owners of Manitoba Municipal Assessment Services in accordance with Section 51 of the Municipal Assessment Act 2021, roll numbers 224900, roll number 235100, roll number 264500, roll number 419600, and roll number 446400.
Can I have a mover, please? Can I have a mover? Councillor Horvis moves, Councillor Spicer seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item on our agenda, 6.4, is the photocopier and printing lease.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our photocopiers and printers for both the Public Works as well as for the main office have expired on their lease, and then what we had was an opportunity to explore other options, and then we went with the RICO, who's been providing lease on for a number of years, and we decided to go with this new lease from Canon Coursera, and these units come at a much reduced price than what we were paying previously.
That's really done big savings.
As well, this product set also brings in software that's going to allow us to do certain things. So the advantages on these photocopiers are, the photocopier/printers is that we had a set price on the amount of whether it was color or black and white print. And so sometimes you tended to print something like this with maybe only 10% color. So these new shows us a significant amount of savings because it begins to measure the amount of color you're actually using as part of it. Sometimes you only have one color logo, like a tiny little color on something. You would have been charged a color price previously. Now it's based on different categories. So that shows the significant savings. So they took a look at all our numbers and what was being printed. They took a look at what was the type of printing we were doing. On top of that, the company that we're going with Coursera, they also are from Gold Business Solutions. They're also offering M-Files, which is another product set that we'll be looking at, which will help us to streamline and change our business processes, which I'll be coming to demonstrate later.
Good news.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you have a resolution for us to consider?
Resolved that the administration be authorized to enter into a 3-year lease agreement with Gold Business Solutions for 3 new Coursera Canon printing units at a combined cost of $13,331.64 plus applicable taxes per year with a 3-year fixed service and toner contract.
Okay, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Strang, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. The Gull Lake Stakeholder Engagement Report, I think we've done that, and I'm not sure if there's anything else that we want to speak about now, or if we want to have a discussion a little later.
Are we accepting it by resolution?
You can receive it as information, you can receive it, how would you like to do it as council? Or report back, or we can delay it and we have a discussion about it afterwards, and come back and we can review it.
Okay, thank you. 6.6, that's the silica sand, and I believe that is the operation that's trying to move forward in Springfield.
Correct. And so there's a silica sand operation project that's moving forward in Springfield. Several municipalities have decided to create an advisory committee in order to look at engineering and legal information related with the effect on the groundwater. And as part of that, there was a discussion with council here that we should become a part of it. So this resolution gives us the authority to work with them, to authorize the mayor and the CIO to sign such agreement. And they will be utilizing legal and engineering services. And at this point, it's been estimated around $10,000 that we should be shared equally with multiple municipalities. The municipalities are listed here.
Go ahead, Councillor Horbis.
So we sign this now, that doesn't mean we're against it, right? It just means that we want to find out everything, how it's going to affect everything. Like if Springfield comes to us and says, we want a letter of support for this.
We don't, the council can decide to give a letter of support.
Yeah, no, I'm
but
just
this would provide you the information, the facts, to be able to make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Go ahead, Councillor Sutherland.
A little off topic, but did anybody read yesterday's paper about the big process the plants are doing in Selkirk? 2,300 people. It's got something to do with silica sand.
Yep.
Yes.
I skimmed through it, I'm not sure the process, but.
That one is taking the silica sand from the north and bringing it down here. Originally, they went through a proposal of using the silica sand as part of the fracking process that they were doing on indigenous lands. And as part of that, they lost that ability. So what they're doing is they're bringing, and they pivoted their project so that they're bringing that silica sand to create solar panels.
Oh, that's what it is.
So it's now taking the silica sand that's readily available there and then bringing it here. What this is a fracking operation that goes into the below the limestone, from my understanding. So there's two layers of at the Vivian Sands location, which is there's a layer above the limestone and a layer of water table, and a water table below the limestone. They're going to the water table below the limestone, is my understanding, and fracking out to pull up the fine silica sand that's very, very specific. And that one is being used for creation of glass for iPhones and those kinds of things. So it's a much more sensitive one than even the solar panel one. And as part of that, the concern is as that water is being brought up to extract the silica sand, and then the water is put back into the ground water, does it have an impact on the water table that's above that?
That's the one at Springfield.
That's the one at Springfield.
But I guess it's going to be open pit, the one in Bull River.
I'm assuming it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure as to the process.
It was interesting, but I'm not sure, how can I say it, I'm not sure where it's going to go, because they were having issues with the hollow water band about doing that extraction up there.
With the fracking like there was Springfield and all this, I think it's just going to be open pit, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I think because
they were 300 people in Selkirk.
Yeah, because I think before they were using it to mine other minerals, not necessarily extract silica. So now they're just taking silica sand. So that's the difference. So they're not using it to mine other minerals.
So they're reopening the pit?
I think they're probably reopening a pit, probably.
See, originally they used to bring it from Block Island.
Black Lake.
Yeah.
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 You could almost drive to Black Island last year. You could walk there. Elk Island.
Really, eh?
Yeah, my sister walked there last year. She said the water was just up to her ankle, all the way there. People were walking there like crazy.
I think water has been down. It was a 100-year drought, so that has had an impact on the province altogether,
See, and
not any specific area.
with that, like Darren was saying with Galway, that the water table is down now, and it's provincial, it's everywhere it's down.
Of course it is.
It's not just there. It's not-
Climate change.
It's down before we started the work.
You see the river behind your house?
Yeah, the Red River's down dramatically.
Creek's down.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Gull Lake's water's down where the pipe that was part of the aerator that was underwater most of the time is exposed. So we had just worked with Gull Lake Basin to be able to put some, I think Trevor was making sure that we would get some barricades so that people don't accidentally run into that pipe snowboarding. Or skidooing.
Skidooing,
Or
yeah.
skidooing.
Okay, so we kind of got a little off track here, so are we gonna have Deepak read the resolution about joining the Springfield group?
Whereas the member municipalities of the RM of Cachet, RM of St. Anne, RM of Lobrokery, RM of Hanover, RM of Broken Head, RM of Reynolds, and City of Steinbach have decided to create a committee referred to as the Municipal Silica Sand Advisory Committee, MSSAC, and whereas the MSSAC have contracted professional services such as legal and engineering experts and have agreed that the cost be shared equally between the member municipalities. Therefore, be it resolved, the RM of St. Clements enter into agreement with the MSSAC to become an equal member and authorize the mayor and the CAO to sign the agreement between all member municipalities.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, Councillor Bezarowitz seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so that takes us down to our accounts for this evening, I believe. And the first one we have is our closed list of accounts, and if I can have the resolution, please.
Resolved, Council approve the December 14, 2021 list of accounts, check numbers 2100 2649 to 21002926 in the amount of $1,374,405.46 for payment.
Can I have a mover, please? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Boulanger seconds. Any discussion? Questions? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. 7.2 on our agenda is the financial plan for November, or the statement as of November 30th, 2021.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I could walk through some of that, or I could just read the resolution. I think the information has been provided for you. My intent is that this is the financial statement. It shows some of the variances up to the November where we are at present time. My intent is that in the new year, we will have a better understanding of all our variances. And then we will then look at options of what will be done with any increases in expenses or savings that will be realized through that variance process.
Okay, do you want any details now, or just we'll do the November statement and we'll probably have another meeting to go through all the details, so.
24.
Don't listen to them.
No kidding.
We can determine at break as to what time, when council.
What time? Oh, we said we're meeting, never mind what time. Okay, can we have the resolution then for the November financial statement, please?
Resolve the financial statements dated November 30th, 2021 be accepted as presented.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, second, please. Councillor Strang, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Okay, and the next item, 7.3, is our interim operating budget, and this is something that we need to do every December so that we can pay bills in January before any budget is approved.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So whereas in accordance of Section 163 of the Municipal Act, the Council of the Aurora Municipality St. Clements have made an interim operating budget for all operating and capital expenditures for the municipality to be in effect from January 1st, 2022 until the adoption of the operating and capital budget for the year. Therefore, be it resolved the following interim operating budget be adopted. Operating requirements, general government services, $360,000. Protective services, $200,000. Transportation services, $720,000. Environmental health services, $200,000. Environmental development services, $15,000. Economic development services, $26,000. Recreation and cultural services, $73,000. Fiscal and capital, $500,000. Capital requirements borne by reserves, $500,000.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowicz, second, please. Councillor Boulanger, discussion. Go ahead.
No, forget it. I'm not gonna, I'll mention it later. It's okay.
Anybody else? If it's thinking about perhaps changing one of those figures?
No.
Okay.
No, just a comment I was gonna make.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I've got a mover and a seconder, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Then we get into our grants. And the first one, 7.4.1, is Lakeshore Heights Association. And I'm not sure what we have there now.
We have a request for $40,000 from Lakeshore Heights for playground and community shelter revitalization. So what they're looking at is to, they've identified some $40,000 in expenses related to $30,000 for a playground structure, as well as $10,000 for structural floor revitalization. This is the first time we've ever received a request from Lakeshore Heights. As part of it, and Council may recall, Lakeshore Heights was the recipient of the award for recreation and the work that they've done in that area. From the province, they received an award for volunteers and the work that they've done.
Okay, so I know we had some discussion earlier, so I'm going to open it up before we read the resolution and see where we're going to go with this one for this year. Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
Did we not give our recreation leader some direction as to how we wanted her to report back to Lakeshore Heights on this specific request?
Yes, I believe that was discussed earlier today. Go ahead.
There's been some discussion to that earlier, but as part of the resolution, you can delay on not making a resolution today. And the discussion was that the recreation manager will work with Lakeshore Heights to look at making applications for some grants, as well as giving support and identifying as part of our budget review for our variance review for the end of the year, at which point we can make a decision. So to defer this to the January council meeting.
I think Spicer said it the best when he said that, you know, we could partner with them, which would be good, you know? So, and then nobody's gonna do anything in the winter now anyways, you know, unless they have to order something, I guess, or whatever, so.
Okay, so, go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
So are you, Madam Mayor, looking for a motion to table?
We could have a motion to table it. I was just gonna ask that it be held over to the next meeting, but if you would prefer to have a resolution to table it till the next meeting, I'm fine with that too. What is the preference?
I'll also.
You can raise a resolution to table it.
Okay, resolved that the grant request from Lakeshore Heights Association, Inc. be held over till the January meeting of council.
Okay, so I have a mover. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Strang seconds that. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. Okay, this one, I guess 7.2, 4.2, the Vitera Championship, the curling championship. I don't believe that we did discuss this one this morning. And I see that everything is here, so I'm going to open it up for some discussion. Anybody have any thoughts, queries, questions?
Just history, we have supported this in the past.
Okay.
It used to be, it was under Bossier before or something. They had everybody housed, I think, in Bossier, and they transported them here or something.
I think it depends what event it is. I don't know for Vitera where they house them and where they.
That's what it was.
So it's gonna be in Salkirk this year at the hockey rink, okay?
Yes.
Yes. So, and I know in the past we have supported them, so I guess the request was for $25,000 for the 2021 budget. So I'm going to open it up now for some
The
discussion.
administrative report recommends $2,000.
Yeah, I'll go with the administrative report.
Okay.
Did you say 25,000?
Well, that's what it asks. This year's
Can't
budget.
open this up for some reason.
Yeah.
It's not-
Well, and I guess I don't disagree with the 22,000, but I think we could probably give them a little bit more.
Then what, in 2000?
Yeah. I didn't realize that it said that the total budget was for 25,000.
I'm okay with 2000.
Me
Okay.
too.
Two? Okay,
For
then
me,
if that's
anyway.
what's in the resolution, then we'll go with that. I just thought it doesn't come around very often, and it's not,
So they were happy with 1,000 originally, and then we recommended 2,000.
okay, so then that works.
So will there be any signs or
Yes,
anything for
the
East
sponsor
Salkirk?
options are attached.
Okay.
The most popular being We Love Our Volunteers, so we're taking the $2,000.
Okay.
Okay. Did you read the resolution? We'll move it
For
forward.
2,000 dedicated lobby area signage, 6-day passes to the Bonspiel, 6-day passes.
Nice logo.
Naming and decorating to the VIP area, flexibility to customize the space, and 1 to 5, sheets 1 to 5, a nice logo.
Me and Sandra should go there and set up our little flag.
Or stand like this.
Yeah. Just need the-
Okay, so resolved, council authorizes sponsorship in the amount of $2,000 to Vitera Championships for the Manitoba Provincial Men's Curling to be hosted in Salkirk, January 25th to the 30th, 2022.
And mover, please, Councillor Bazarowicz, Councillor Horvath seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, the next one we have is the South St. Clements COPP program, and we had a bit of discussion on that one again this morning. So if you want to bring the resolution forward, please.
Resolved, council approved the following 2021 requested grant from South St. Clements COPP for $3,000.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Strang, second. Councillor Bazarowicz, discussion.
The room spray it and all that stuff. I mean, ice time is more now, you know?
And they'll pay, because there's a shortage of it, so.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
Part of our other conversation with this was that we were going to ask the supervisor there to do a number of things, correct? We were going to ask for either an audited statement or some audited books so we can make our decision more properly. We were also going to ask him, in his mind, what the health of the plant was. Is it dire? Is it 2 weeks it could go? Is it 2 days it could go? Just a sense of how bad it is. I think those were some of the things we talked about. And I think when those requests are made, I think it should be made to him that the sooner than later, if he can get us this information, especially regarding the books, the better. Is that what we talked about?
That is what we talked about earlier today, and I believe that we also basically instructed the recreation director to do that for administration and for council, and if I remember the conversation correctly, we did say that we would provide funding for the COVID testing or for a person to do all that testing. Please correct me if I've misunderstood.
I think
We'll find that at this time, yes.
she also suggested that maybe going forward here till this thing gets kind of cleaned up or something, that somebody from council should sit on this board with them just to try and steer
I
things.
think the recommendation was the administration, the manager
Right.
would be sitting.
Yeah,
with
her,
it.
or whatever. Well, I heard her say something from council, but if she wants to do
She
it, that's.
suggested herself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so. Okay, so now getting back to the,
Dave, something
oh,
that
go
has to say
ahead,
something?
go ahead, Councillor.
I agree with what should be done over there, things have to change, and I get it, and I completely agree, but I think we should still free up the $30,000 now. Talk about the rest later, once we get more details about everything, and yeah, Scott, Blake, it's kind of like a one-man show, only because he pretty well has to be, you can't get volunteers, from what I understand, but has he done things right? Probably not.
Probably the best of his ability.
Or, yeah, no, I'm not saying anything against him, but he can only do so much. I don't, but still, things haven't been done right, and he's got to, I agree with what Scott and Rob said, but I'm just suggesting we still, our normal $30,000 that we still should do.
Maybe he just doesn't have anything, somebody to sound stuff off of, his ideas. Like
I
when
don't know
she's
the
there,
answers.
that might be a help to him, Like he's gonna say, I wanna do this, and then she said, go stop, we gotta do this and this first, or whatever. I think isn't that why we hired her? I mean,
Yep.
isn't that part of her job?
Talking over.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
no,
think
that's right, Dave, I agree, but I still think we should give the $30,000 now.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, they're probably
That's
well
just
stressed there, worried about where's this gonna get paid from, people phoning or whatever.
Okay, anybody else? I guess I'm gonna perhaps, oh, go ahead, Sandra.
I was just gonna say, so is it just the 30? Because I know.
That's
and
what
then that
we
was
normally give
That's
them.
what we normally give them?
Yeah, yeah.
And he could take, I know there are some bills that need to be paid, and to take the one for the amount for the scanning out of there too, and then when they bring us back some new numbers, and then we'll.
Well, the scanning was 20. The scanning was 20.
Right, so then he'd still have extra funds in there to pay the bills, or.
I think I found the information that he provided. He said the COVID-19 extra staffing and everything else ends up to be $20,000. He also owes, or there's also outstanding just about $7,000 for an invoice. So if we normally give him $30,000, could we look at giving him I shouldn't say him or his, it's to the ESRA, the $30,000 that they normally get, plus the 20 for their COVID person?
Which we would pull that 20 from the COVID money?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, that's even better yet.
That's 50. Well, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with that because there's no statement or anything. You know what I mean? But
I think Brennan was gonna come back, like she was gonna go and speak to them over there, and I think she was gonna come back with more information for us.
Yeah.
But I think the 30,000, if we gave that, to cover that, to take that off and to cover.
So the 30 then, what you're saying then is the 30 would cover the cost for the COVID person plus the outstanding bill that he has right now.
Well,
That's 27.
But going forward, they have to realize if they have COVID or whatever, they have to charge more an hour to cover that cost.
Yeah, but we don't know if they are not doing that or whether they're
I don't
doing
know,
it,
but
yeah.
I'm just saying, it's gotta be it's gotta be, there's gotta be so much there to carry itself. And if we get 50, then they're just not, they're gonna say, well, we'll do the statements whenever. We're out of that now and we'll just carry on. If
Well,
there's
no,
no incentive there,
I agree.
I think the direction was given to Brenna today that she gets some of that information.
That's right.
from them.
yeah,
Right, but if I may,
Yes, go right ahead.
she can do that, but we are not gonna get audited statements from Sternett and Associates like this.
No.
no,
This will take time for them to put that together. We're not gonna see anything in terms of what,
it's 2 months
of
before we'll see
what
them.
Councillor Spicer is asking for a while.
So what is the suggestion? Give them the 30,000, which covers the two, and perhaps it can be requested, as we talked about earlier, is we all know that the ice plant is near its life's end. So are we gonna get that information, ask for that information? Is it gonna be good for 2 days?
Yes.
2 weeks, 2 months?
That we can get quick.
That we can get quick, and then if need be, it can come back to us. If he comes back and says, geez, you know, I got a quote and they say it's only gonna last for another 2 weeks, we can discuss it. Councillor Spicer.
I think I'm following along your lines. I think we do the $30,000 right now, and we make a decision based on everything else, based on the information we get from our requests.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because if we
I agree.
get a lot, then we can consider that. If we don't get much, then we'll consider that too.
Or if it looks worse than or if it comes back as really being dire.
and everybody has to be sat down and say,
Yeah.
listen, this isn't working here. What can we do to make this better and make it work better,
Definitely.
you know?
And I'm gonna make a suggestion to administration and Deepak, if you could pass it on to Brenna, that some of this information that we're looking for, like the life of the ice plant and different things like that. I know the audited statement will take longer, but some of this information, if we could have it within 30 days.
I would say for the next council meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
is
so
our
that's,
intent.
okay, so that's only the mid-January, so it's about the 11th of January, so within a couple of weeks.
That's almost a month.
Oh, yeah, almost a month, yeah.
With Christmas
So,
tomorrow.
yeah.
27 days.
It's always gonna cost money to run us.
I didn't want to say 30 because then it would take us into
Yeah.
possibly the last meeting of council.
Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
Is the 20,000 gonna come out of our COVID fund then?
Yes, it is.
That will, and then the 10 for right now out of the other basket?
You'll approve what are you approving first? 30,000?
Yeah.
Yes.
You'll approve the 30,000, we'll let them deal with it. When you finally decide on what's going to be given, and then when we do our budgeting, we'll distribute the funds as necessary.
I think we should be telling them
Councils.
what we're giving them this for your scanner and for to pay your bills, there's your.
We'll let them know that.
Yeah.
But you'll approve $30,000 and then,
Yes.
and then we'll work with council, you'll see us move the money from
Yeah.
the COVID dollars. But that should be a council budgeting.
Yeah.
We'll have a basket discussion.
We'll be asking.
Okay, so do you have a resolution prepared to that effect?
Yes. Resolved, council approved the following 2021 requested grant budget, East Soccer Recreation Association, $30,000.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Horvath seconds, discussion. I think we had it, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, we are down to bylaws, number 8 on our agenda, and we do have one bylaw for first reading today, and that is bylaw 20, or I don't know if it's the correct number, should it not have been renumbered? Because this is a new bylaw for expenses.
11/2021.
There should be a new number for 2021.
Yeah.
I'll have to verify that.
I just noticed it now,
It's a
so.
very good point.
We slightly
Yes.
changed the numbers, yeah.
So can we leave this till after?
After supper?
After supper.
Yeah, we can come
We
back
can
to
take a
it.
supper break and then we'll come back.
Yeah. Okay, so communications for information.
with food from lunch.
Anything that you wanted to touch on here, Mr. Administrator?
Soccer cross, no, there wasn't anything specific. Valley Fiber is just a public notification that they've gone out and started doing it. I'm in the process of working with them to get the lease agreement signed, or the easement agreement signed. And there wasn't anything else that was of any specific that I want to bring forward. The information's been provided there.
Okay, the only one that I kind of was going to touch on is, I don't even know what the number of it is, 9.7.1, Manitoba Agriculture and Resource Development, and regarding the shooting on the floodway.
Oh, good point.
And I see that the information, this letter signed by the Deputy Minister was sent to Ms. Karen Friesen and Ms. Sandy Weitzel. And the RM can choose to pass and implement bylaws with respect to the use of firearms and excessive noise within the RM boundaries, including on the floodway lands, and we would encourage you to raise your concerns with the RM authorities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for reminding me on that. Yes, we're not of the same opinion as the Deputy Minister, and we will be seeking legal advice on whether, and we're working towards getting that legal advice, whether we can pass bylaws, municipal bylaws, first on provincial land, second on lands that we don't own, and what is our ability to enforce on lands that we are not ultimately responsible for.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
When I read this, it mirrored everything I've been saying for years, in that this is what the minister would say, is that yes, the floodway is crown land, and as such, anybody can hunt and trap on crown land. And the Department of now Agriculture is not in the business of slowing down, shutting down trapping or hunting. They promote it. I would get hundreds of calls at my desk about the floodway and the concerns with the ratepayers who live along the floodway. This is not something that's going to go away easily. The ratepayers are still going to call, because in their minds and in this complainant's minds, that it's an easy fix, that you just do A, B, and C, but it's not that easy when you're dealing with crown land. Mr. Administrator is right. Municipal bylaws aren't going to attach to crown lands. That's the government's job and not ours. Our bylaw officer, as we said before, should not get involved with hunting because A, he's not an armed officer, he's a bylaw officer. We're not going to send our bylaw officer into a hunting situation when there's firearms involved. That's the conservation officer's job. So I know this isn't going to go away because the complaint is still going to keep asking, which spurred this outcome, this letter. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I just get the sense that she's not going to go away, and this is the best that we're going to get, because we're not, it's a multi-use area. The floodway is eclectic on everybody that uses it. Because it's crown land, that's our sticky wicket.
That's right. Go ahead, Councillor Strang, and then Councillor Borges.
I guess what disappoints me is the province has put, even though it's crown land, it's the floodway, they've made Duff's Trail now to Duff's Ditch, invited people there to go and walk, and they should have did a restriction on it. Just on that area that they made trails.
One more suggestion just came to mind. What we could do is we could ask the Minister of Agriculture, Conservation used to be, to add the portion of the floodway that winds through St. Clements into the near urban hunting center. Now, by doing that, that prohibits a lot of uses in terms of hunting and discharging of firearms. No different than the way it sits currently right now. If you open up the current Manitoba Hunting Guide, they map out where the near urban center is, where there's no discharge of firearms, and they enforce it.
Birdsville Park, you can't hunt there.
Exactly. So that
was a park.
Yeah,
right?
That could be a suggestion from us to them, is that can you add the portion of the floodway that winds through St. Clements into the near urban hunting zone?
We'll make it a park.
Go ahead.
Maybe we should put on our website about this thing, we should do a little write-up on it and put in there that we're getting lots of calls about the hunting, blah, blah, blah. Please note that this is not a municipal matter. We're whatever, sympathetic, we're sympathetic with you or whatever, but here are some numbers to call. Well, sure, why not? And then just let them more get into the groove of calling there.
Yeah, they should.
That's pretty good.
You know?
You're working up to give them her number, salary, right?
How did that get in there?
No, but I mean, it's just to make more aware, because that's where everybody looks. If we put it on there, maybe one person will, click and say, oh, I seen that on the website or
I
whatever.
do like your idea though, Rob, that's something to try, right?
Yeah.
How do we go about that, what Rob suggested, what?
Can I draft up a letter for Mr. Administrator and give it to you, and you can change the way you want, but I have in mind what.
Sure.
Okay.
So that would
Also
still
keep
be,
in mind, this is dealing with motor vehicles, shooting and trapping, not just the shooting. And it was made very clear even at the RCMP meeting that, call them.
They don't have the resources to deal with what they got on their table now. For them to drive over and chase a quad or a skidoo who's on, it is an animal of itself. It's an elephant of itself, the floodway, and the uses that are within it. Just saying.
Understood.
It's.
And how do we get rid of elephants?
Piece at a time. One bite at a time.
I think Glenn had his hand up. Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, just two comments. One on what Dave said there about birds at park, being birds. I hunt the white shell all the time. And what Sandra was saying, that because there's trails that we shouldn't be hunting there, we hunt the trails in the white shell.
Well, you can't hunt within 300 meters of those trails.
That's right.
Back in the bush there, those trails.
See, that's bush though, they've created these trails though, Glenn, on the floodway.
Are you talking about Trans-Canada Trail?
No. Read
Or
the
just
hunting
the
guide.
trail?
Read the hunting guide. It says
300
no hunting
meters
within
of a
300 meters of a road or a built-up area. Those trails in
Right.
some parks are considered a built-up area.
Yeah. Okay, anything else?
CEOs don't say a word. They come with us.
They're never back there.
Okay, so, I guess we are down to
What's this Poplar Lodge thing here or whatever?
That's just
the
their-
White Cobbler. I think it's just for his
Oh,
sign,
sign?
yeah,
Okay.
on the highway there.
Oh,
It's Dylan's place, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I think we are at just a point of interest for those that have been around for a while. Dave Moyse from IDC Communications, who has been supplying cell phones for as long as I can remember, is retiring. So, and he was a cottage owner at Gull Lake. I'm not sure if he's still there or not, so. And, huh?
Yeah.
I think he is too.
His daughter too.
Plus he bought Vernano's place, he's renting that.
Oh,
one.
right, that's right too. So, anything else you wanted to comment on?
I did check with Heather on the reasoning behind not giving a new bylaw number.
Okay.
She identified that she did it as it's being as an amendment to an existing. With just the amounts.
Okay.
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, because the first thing that comes into my mind is why would we be giving the whole bylaw first reading?
It's just putting forward
An amendment, that's right. I think we still have lots of time, so maybe we should clarify that and have it done correctly.
yeah, it's 180 days or something before the election.
Yeah, that's 6 months, so.
Yeah, so.
Okay, so I think now we are down to council reports. You want to say that you did nothing?
yeah.
Councillor Horbus can start today.
I have nothing to report.
And Councillor Basarowicz.
Okay, November 22nd, 23rd AMM. It's different, definitely different, those over there. I thought it was way too short. November 26th, a bunch of us took an RM tour. It was a long day, a cool day, there was lots to see. November 30th, we had a cow meeting here. December 2nd, we had an RM meeting in Springfield. I did not know they had a brand new building there. It's 2 years old and all done through volunteer. The RM didn't throw nothing at me for that, or very good. What kind of building? Rec building.
It's Cooks Creek
Gym,
Community
kitchen,
Center.
Community center, that's gorgeous.
It's very nice.
Very simple too, but it's just a square box. Huge stage on there, got a live band up there. Very nice. Big gym. December 7th, we had RCMP here. I did Zoom. December 8th, we had Mr. Johnston. December 10th, Ron Schuler via Zoom. And December 11th, on Saturday, it was the Christmas party. I'd like to thank staff and whoever else was involved in it. They did a really nice job. Again, it was a little bit different. It was kind of funny. So I just kind of giggled to myself. With these venues, you gotta have 50% capacity or whatever. You know, well, anyways, it's kind of funny because if they were to go at 50% capacity or doing the spacing, the distancing, it was like being in a colony. One side was empty, the other side, everybody was packed. Yeah. Like it kind of defeated that purpose if you were gonna.
That was apparently the recommendation of the caterer.
Yeah, well, no, that's cool.
And, no, I think it should have been spread out.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
should have been spread out so that a lot of people.
Yeah, they only use the north side of the hall, so we were all on, like on the bar side, eh?
You said they just.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think the
it's
caterer
still,
just didn't want to set up.
They
tables
wanted
on
it
both
for
sides.
ease and for,
well, you know what? It could have been still all on the north side. All that would have happened was those tables would have had to be spread out and the silent auction could have gone over on the other side at the end, at the back.
True.
We've done that too. I mean, I've done lots of events there at the hall and you kind of do lots of different things sometimes, so.
It was one of those learning experiences, you
Yeah.
know, because we're in the middle of COVID, everybody's
Yep.
taking direction, it's no different than, you know, the rules from the caterer were different than the rules of the hall.
Yeah. Okay, Glenn, you finished there? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
November 18th, Galway Regional Library regular meeting. Just a little follow-up on the Legacy of Love project. They did get a grant for the opening from the province, so that was good. And I think I reported to you that the library had to spend a little money on the structure to make sure that it's wind-blown proof. And we actually got some donations from the concrete guy and also the general contractor. So, and they did get a foundation grant of $25,000. Programming, seniors program is going very good. We have the cap at 35. We're not providing transportation. And 0 to 3 year olds, we're doing 2 sessions now because of demand. School-age kids are down in attendance. Circulation is steady. We're still reading books. The art group actually is partnering with the library. This is interesting. They're doing the 13 totem teachings. So they're providing kits to the library that kids can pick up. So it's kind of cool. There was a provincial increase in funding. If you remember, or maybe you don't, the province used to give us $8.50 a person based on population. They gave us an increase to $9.91. So we're up about $40,000 in funding. The difference in this one is typically that's done by legislation. This one has been done a different way, so we're not sure if it's a one-timer or what it is, so. We have a new union agreement, got that straightened out in the first 2 weeks of December here. That's about it. November 19th, WMR Plan 2050, as per Councillor Harviss's request, I'll keep this short. Basically, it went through the next steps that the province are going to take, which is some review of what the information we're giving them, set up the capital planning region. They wanted us to chat with them about the positives and negatives and some solutions. Mr. Mike Talley gave us a little bit of background. They're also they're doing a municipal board review, and they're also doing a review of the planning handbook, and they're working on the draft regulations. Capital planning region will have 1 rep per municipality. Once the regulations are passed, we have 2 years to adopt our plan that fits in with their plan. I guess I'll leave the rest of that. Oh, one other interesting comment that was made was compact development is a savings of 38% on roads, water, and sewer on average. Putting those in. November 24th, IERHA, Health Services Delivery. So this is Dr. David Mateer, talked about it being in wave 4 of COVID. Most ICU goes to Winnipeg. This is interesting. Nurse vacancies in the IERHA in acute care. Stonewall has 31.7% vacancies, Beausejour has 31.5%, and Gimli has 28.5%. So there have been 21 beds that have been closed in those 3 communities because of nurse vacancies.
Comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know where these numbers come from or what they actually mean. Beausejour Hospital really hasn't operated for the last number of years.
What?
Beausejour Hospital has not been operating for the last number of years.
How do you mean operating?
There's no doctor there, nothing. You go in there,
Well,
emergency or whatever. I
Is
know
the
people-
hospital closed?
No.
No.
The doors are open, but there's nothing there. Like, I know people have just dropped their family off there so that the ambulance can pick them up so they don't have to pay for the ambulance. It's just like a way station.
Yeah, but that's
Had
emergency.
to go in there too for emergency and there's no.
These
doctor.
are acute care beds they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I know a buddy of mine, he was put in there to die. Like, he had cancer, and it was just a place where they could isolate him. This hospital is really not operating.
Yeah, I've heard that, but there's no doctor there. I heard that.
Well, there's no doctor there on a full-time basis, I don't think. But there is a doctor there.
Comes there?
I'm quite
Okay,
sure, and I think
I
if you look on the IERJ website, you'll see when there is a doctor on site. Go ahead, keep going there, Scott.
So, further to that, there was discussions about surgical backlogs, and the numbers vary between 136,000 and 152,000. So they're looking at trying to find a way to get those back on. And then there was a larger discussion about personal care home beds, which is kind of what you just talked about, because there's a lot of people not in the right place. Let's put it that way. And there's a pretty big philosophical talk about the changing with shared care and how people should be looked after in regards to, like, maybe they should be in home care instead of somewhere. It all depends on their level of care needed. St. Andrews Lock and Dam was November 24th. It went over the changes since the last meeting and the next steps. Nothing huge to talk about there other than they have hired a heritage monitor now, and they have 3,000 artifacts that they found so far.
Holy mackerel.
And some of them are as old as 18 to 2,000 years old.
18,000 or 1,800?
Or 1,800, sorry, it's 2,000 years old.
Like what kind? Like what?
Everything from pottery to
Arrowheads?
stuff like that.
Wow.
Scott, can I?
And then there was,
Scott has a
So
question.
I didn't attend that. Are they still doing any big modified changes? Are they keeping, or are they gonna have those portals still out? Or are they, did they scrap those off the bridge?
I think they're still talking about
They're
this.
still talking.
yeah, those, that's really not in this project.
Oh,
No.
really? Okay.
So what we're trying to do from a political standpoint is get them into the project.
Okay. I thought they
Because
were originally in there,
apparently-
no? Okay.
Apparently this project is $40 million. And those vistas would be
There wasn't
a
even
half a
one,
million.
there wasn't even one, wasn't there some outlook, like,
No.
outlook,
I
no?
thought,
Okay.
didn't we talk about this before? Somebody was saying that they're under budget or something, and this would come in on a contingency. There was enough to.
There's an opportunity,
Yeah,
because
that's.
they would have at least 15% contingency on a $40 million budget.
Yeah, I think you was mentioning that not too long ago, was you? At the last meeting?
Okay, thank you.
I attended the RRBC LiDAR mapping November the 25th. So basically we went over kind of how it works, the uses of it, how we would use it for climate adaptation, and they are providing 13 videos. Video 1 to 5 is for LiDAR, video 6 to 13 is for climate adaptation. November the 26th, I also went on the North End RM tour, and we visited waste disposal site, trails, boat launches, and parking. November 29th, the Planning Act webinar, talking about Bill 37. Mike Tying again was talking to us about the history and a lot of what Eric Eno talked about today, about appeals. So I don't have much to add there. November 30th, Committee of the Whole, we talked about silica sand, planning, policy discussion, public works update, CAO update. December 7th, our CMP public engagement. We had a good update from our 3 new gentlemen that are in charge, and their priorities. And of course, we talked about the Grand Marais detachment, and we had a pretty good turnout. December the 8th, we talked to Minister Johnson about water line funding and some approval challenges we're having. And then on December 10th, we had a meeting with Minister Schuler. That was a very productive meeting about reducing speed at PTH 44 in Industrial Park and some more approval challenges that we've been having. Thank you, sorry for, it was a busy month.
That's quite all right, thank you for that.
That's it.
That's it.
Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
Okay. November 17th, I attended a Zoom virtual conference in East St. Paul. They had a whole variety of topics. The one I attended was on active transportation and trails. The speaker they had, the part that I sat in on, was a couple hours, but it was pretty mind-blowing. Mine anyway, it wasn't what I expected. The speaker talked, I think, for 35 to 45 minutes about her background and what she did, which had really nothing to do with trails and active transportation. They touched on a little bit of it later, but it really wasn't that portion wasn't great. I don't know about the rest of it, but that's the one I attended in on. I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I got sent over to me. If anybody has any questions, I can tell you what was talked about in more depth on the trails, but it wasn't a lot. November 30th, we had our cow here. Scott talked about what we talked about in that. December 7th, RCMP in the chamber. That was interesting, a lot of good stats. December 8th, Minister Johnson. December 9th, I attended the Selkirk AGM, Selkirk Biz. A lot of interesting topics.
Minute the day before, and I misread it, and I thought it was in the afternoon, and I said, oh, I'd like to attend, but I ended up in a Zoom meeting, another Zoom meeting that morning, so, and I think it was Lois must have texted me and said, oh, are you joining us? And I said, unfortunately, I misread your email, and I'm sorry I can't, so.
To Sandra's point, it's a very good point, because do you know what happened? It almost got canceled. They were having a hard time getting quorum. It was, I think we waited 15, supposed to start at noon, we didn't start till 12:20 because we had to wait to see if they were actually sending a text to everybody. We need to meet quorum, can you come, can you come? So on Sandra's point, having it in the evening would have been many people attending, so.
Yeah. So.
December 10th, the Zoom meeting with Minister Shooter was not, I know Scott, Councillor Spicer has been making a unique point there, but I just find it interesting that for a minister that was so in love with a roundabout, that there was a lot of disconnection with what we actually wanted at Lockport. And having a roundabout in Lockport isn't, in my personal view, isn't what Lockport needs. We've got semi-tractor trailers going through there. He felt that the roundabouts was the best thing since sliced bread. We want to slow down traffic in Lockport. We want people to stop, pause at a light and look around and see what they can do. Can I go left? Can I go right? Oh geez, I didn't see that over there, I'm going to go over there. Not a roundabout where you're continually cycling people through Lockport. We want it to quell. We want, yes, it's a major thoroughfare. I get that. They're redoing the bridge because of it. They're widening it. But a roundabout? I don't know. I just don't think a roundabout is the best way to go about.
Have you seen the one on Garden? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, like, you know.
But Garvin has
Garvin's
nothing right there.
Yeah. And
It's not like Lockport.
there's no more room on
Yeah.
Garden.
So anyway, it just, you know, it's one thing of trying to sell us the roundabout, but it's going to be our decision, and well, I shouldn't say our decision. We should have an integral point in making, and that's what when Minister Wharton piped up, he was making some good comments about, you know, this is what they want to do there, so maybe we should listen to them.
Well, and I think too, in one of the meetings that we were attending not that long ago, did they not talk about that there will be some public consultation this spring on that? Like on that, what they're doing with the roadways there.
Yeah,
So,
that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Sandra.
I was just gonna say, like, you know what, our council is open to, and you did make that point, that we're open to, but just show us, like, the thing is with the roundabout, how is it safe for, we want people to be, like, you know, commuting, crossing the roads, whatever there, how is it gonna be safe for people to be crossing there?
Go ahead,
And the other
Gavin.
continuous.
The other thing is we haven't got any dates yet, like when are they gonna do this work? Like, right now is the best time because they're already in construction. This could drag out the construction over the next 5-6 years between this and the bridge.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, there's supposed to be public consultation in the spring, and I don't know when the work is slated for, probably not till the end of 2022.
As soon as the bridge is finished.
Yeah, that's one starts, the next one will come.
Did you have anything else to report, Rob? or
That is
you
it
were
for me.
done?
Thank you.
That was it for you? Okay, go ahead, Sandra.
Okay, I'm gonna go, I won't, I've gone to a lot of duplicates here. November 17th had Red River Planning. We had 2 items that were approved for our municipality. One was rezoning, one was the subdivision. Another issue that was brought up at planning was interpretation of inspectors and expectations. So that's something that they're going to look at. But other than that, things are still booming ahead for them. November 22nd and 23rd, I also attended AMM, and one of the things you heard today, well, one of the things brought up was cybersecurity. That's very important now. That's becoming more popular, that they're breaking into, and they said the #1 place is cities, towns, municipalities, that they're getting information. The other thing I really enjoy all the time is all the resolutions. That some of them are very good. And we got back just in time to vote.
Yes.
On the 25th, I also attended the LiDAR, the Intro to LiDAR presentation. On the 26th, also did the tour of the north, which I found it very interesting because since I'm from the south, I don't get to, then I hear everybody's talking about different areas, but actually got to see them, and then we got to see along all the staircases at Balsam Harbor there, and I'm sure they're along at a lot of the other beaches that we discussed this morning too, that are on our property, but that was interesting, but everybody uses this property, so. November 30th, we had COW with Public Works. December 2nd, I also attended the Christmas, the ARM. It was in Springfield. It was our Christmas supper, so they had a live band, no reports from any of the municipalities. December 7th was the RCMP residential meeting, and it was really good that we got out to them. I think it would be better once we're in person, because the one that we had down south was more people were asking questions. I think sometimes on Zoom that people just don't want to ask the question.
Definitely.
Yeah. December 8th, meeting with Minister Johnson, which I thought was a good meeting. December 10th, also meeting with Minister Schuler. December 11th, I also attended the ARM Christmas party, and thank you to the administration and all the staff. Brett, you did a lot for it, I know. But it was really nice to get out and to see everybody too, to be face to face. December 13th, yesterday, Red River Basin had their second session with climate adaptation, and they were showing different things of how everything is with all our fires, the heat that we're getting all the time, the rain. Now you see in BC that they're getting the rainfalls that are just downpours.
Extreme.
Yeah, to the extreme that they said that as we sit around the council tables here, how we have to be thinking of different decisions that we're making and thinking of the environment all the time. And they were showing the next steps with using LiDAR for it. And then today with committee poll.
Okay, thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor Sutherland.
Okay, November 26th. We had our, I guess, northerly tour, I'll call it. We should do it again, south. Yeah, we met Greg at the landfill. And we looked at the Baconia well, and Councillor Spicer took us to Alexander. I've never been there before, the areas he took us, which was some boat launches and some lots of parking lots that they put in. It was pretty interesting. November 30th, our committee of the whole meeting, which I was mentioned already. December 2nd, our Christmas party in Springfield. December 7th, our meeting here with the RCMP, which I think went very well. Glad it was a meeting with them in person, not a Zoom meeting. December 8th, we had our meeting with Minister Johnson. December 10th, the meeting with Minister Schuler, which I think it was I'll say a productive meeting, because everybody is aware of our problem with the flooding. So I think there's no excuses now. We're at least, so something's going to happen to move things forward one way or the other. So that's, for that reason, I think it was, I know Rob, you weren't too happy with some of the stuff, but I think that part was very important. December 11th, Mayor Debbie and myself and my granddaughter, we attended the Santa Claus parade in Grand Marais, which was a nice day, and there was quite a few people. Very good. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I was looking for one note here about that.
Hey, how are you?
Yes. Okay, I'm not gonna repeat, I was pretty much at all the same things that everybody else was at, and I have a few extras here, so I'm just gonna go do the extras today. November the 19th, we had a WMR Plan 2050 Workshop 1, and I think Scott did report on that one. November the 26th, we had a WMR meeting, and I guess basically we're still trying to do the same thing. We're having our second session for Plan 2050 on Friday, and there is the new census data will be used for the population projections. I know everybody was really concerned with the projections that were in Plan 2050, so hopefully it'll level itself off a little bit. I don't know if it will or not, and some people are still very irritated by those population projections. November 20, I put this all together, November 21st, 20th, and 26th, I volunteered at Holiday Alley. The movie night on the 26th, I was there for about 3 hours, and it was kind of interesting. There was quite a few people there for the first show, which was The Grinch, and it kind of petered out after that, so, but it was good. There was a pretty good turnout, as I say. November the 24th, 29th, 30th, and the 6th of December, our small group from RRPD met with our lawyer, and on 3 dates, and then on December the 6th, it was actually with the City of Selkirk, their lawyer, and the mediator to start those discussions about Selkirk's withdrawal from the planning board. So, of course, everything is in camera, so that's about all I can share with you, is those meetings have started and they are ongoing. So we'll see where that goes. And December the 9th, I had a John Q meeting. I went in for that one. There's been a couple of changes on the John Q board. I guess the representative from St. Andrews, Stan Halbesma, as a citizen rep, resigned because I think he's retired now and he's just kind of taking life easy. So now Lori Hunt is the representative from St. Andrews on that group. And the other two are the Santa Parade and the Christmas gathering. So, and again, as everybody else said, I would like to thank the staff and management for all the hard work for the Christmas party. I know it's not easy to put that together. Been there, done that, so it can be time consuming. So thank you for all your hard work. And that's all I have. So I guess it's your turn, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So November 19th, WMR Plan 2050 as well. November 22nd, Province of Manitoba Bill 47. November 24th, St. Andrews Lock and Dam. November 25th, LIDAR with the Red River Basin Group. November 26th, tour of the north of the RM and looking at some of our municipal sites as well as looking at Alexander. November 30th, COW meeting. December 1st, Manitoba Water Services Board meeting. December 2nd, Planning Act book with the province of Manitoba. This is the book for rules of the Planning Act related with Bill 37. And then December 2nd, ARM meeting in Springfield. December 3rd, Manitoba Hydro. December 7th, RCMP presentation, December 8th, Minister of Municipal Relations, December 10th, Minister of Manitoba Infrastructure, and December 11th, RM Christmas party, as well as various meetings with developers, builders, and the planning staff.
And Brett, I know you're gonna run away, but did you have anything you wanted to share with us today?
No, I didn't.
Okay, thank you for that. And with that, I guess we will have our supper break. I think it's around 5 o'clock, it's after 5, and we will be starting again at 6 o'clock. So I will ask Brett to pause the recording, and we'll